Deidre Pujols to this day is still one of my favorite people. And, we met at a prayer dinner at Margiato's. And we were a part of a global prayer network that would get together every month, hosted by Steve. He's an amazing man of God. And we would all come together and pray for organizations all around the world that were doing the work in the anti-trafficking movement, right? And it was one of my favorite calls. So I was so excited to go to this dinner and meet the people who I prayed with every month, to support the heart of God, right? And Deidre Pujols was there. I did not know who she was. She didn't know who I was, right? But I remember looking at her thinking, oh my gosh, she's so fly. Like, who is this girl with this kind of like one side of her hair is shaved and the other side is super cute and asymmetrically trimmed, and she had the fingernails that was like super trending at the time and knew Rihanna was wearing them, and I mean her clothes were just like super trendy. I was just like, who is this woman at I'm expecting a really kind of dull, relaxed, chill prayer dinner, and she is just looking super fly. And I remember thinking, I want to get to know her. She's like super excited about the movement. And of course, being a survivor there, a lot of times, you get into all these different type of conversations, and people do want to speak with you and sometimes ask about your story or things like that. And in these kind of environments, I'm absolutely okay with it. But me and her began to talk, and I mean, we just clicked. It was almost like we were kindred spirits. I mean, we were like, let's get together, okay? And so the next day we actually met up at Busboys and Poets, and we had an amazing, amazing lunch. Shrimp and grits, I believe I can't remember what she got, but it was just powerful. We talked about Jesus. We talked about testimony. We talked about the power of God and restoration. She talked about just flying around the world to visit these organizations and seeing the powerful things that they had done. And just, we talked about creativity and all the things that we wanted to do and could do together. We started building like a superhero plan of flying around the world together to just go save the world, And I remember that she got up and went to the bathroom, and I remember thinking, you know what? I'm talking about flying around the world with this lady. I didn't really look her up to see who she was, And so while she's in the bathroom, I look up Deidre Pujols and realize that she's married to Albert Pujols, and that he's this baseball player who'd been in the league for 17 years. But it got to the point where this salary jumps at me, and I'm realizing that, oh my God, this woman I'm just sitting here casually eating shrimp and grits and shooting the breeze with, it's like worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And I remember just being stunned, being so stunned, because she was so down to earth, you would have never known. And when she came back, I had this stunned look on my face, and she's like, what happened? And I was like, I looked you up. I had to tell her, And she's like, oh no, you didn't know? Like, oh no, I wasn't sure if she thought maybe I would treat her different, but I remember looking at her and saying, oh my gosh, that's the answer right there. You have the answer at the tip of your fingertips. How do you help so many organizations that you want to touch and you want to affect and you want to create change in their lives and in their organizations' lives? You have a platform where you can lift them all up at one time, And I remember us just looking at each other and realizing that God had ordained this time for me and her. And, she went back to California and, met with her team, and they began to brainstorm, and while she was brainstorming this, I was, they were brainstorming, strike out slavery, this ballpark event. I was in Washington, D.C., brainstorming the Ambassador Artist Program. And Deidre was my very first sponsor. She was so excited, and it was a response to DC Missing Kids. You'll be able to see one of those full performances in our production section. And she sponsored that because I wanted her to see these survivors who were not just speakers, but also amazing artists. And I also wanted to pitch the idea of having a survivor sing the national anthem. This was before people were taking a knee, I believe. if I'm not mistaken. But I knew that the goal and the pitch behind that was so that I could get provision for these survivors who are artists, because they were already going to have these big Nick Jonas, performers, and these huge, people who were going to be a part of it. But survivors have a voice and survivors have talent. And there was a young lady who I loved dearly who was a survivor, and she had a beautiful voice. And so we showcased this entire event at Tacoma Station in Washington, D.C., and Deidre sponsored it for me so that I can get all the survivors there, and get an Airbnb that we all stayed in, and just, be able to pay them what I could just so that they can, participate in this. And we wanted to share with the world that DC missing kids weren't runaways. We were trying to answer this. And we were able to do that. And when Deidre, I had a whole little section for her as our event sponsor. And she heard that young lady sing. And I pitched it to her then. And she said, okay, Stacy, you want to do this? Great. Meet me at the Nationals stadium, and we're gonna try to, pitch this idea, after, I became a part of a team, and we did. And the Nationals, heard my story being from DC and heard that the young lady also was trafficked, but also born in DC. They couldn't help but say absolutely. And, my favorite thing about Deidre is that she doesn't, mince words, basically. She's very open. And I looked at her and said, oh, but she can't sing the national anthem and be homeless. And Deidre said, absolutely not. We have to make sure we have funding set aside just for her. And I remember her looking at me, and I didn't have a price, and I didn't know what to necessarily say. And she threw out a number, and I went back and I put together an entire plan around that number so that this young lady could, not just sing and get a small amount of money, but actually get money that would change her life, and create a program around developing her to be prepared to sing the national anthem at Strike Out Slavery. And so it was a beautiful program, and that case study is in our case study section. And anyway, I was just supposed to be giving you a small, brief reason why I love Deidre Pujols, but we started a movement together, and that was through the power of prayer and God.